Chaos ripped through the compound as enemy fire rattled walls and panic spread. SEALs, men trained for the impossible, scrambled, pinned, their weapons dangerously low on ammunition. One screamed, "We're all dead." Another cursed the total lack of backup. Dust cascaded from the ceiling as recent impacts loosened the structure. Light fixtures swayed on their chains, casting dancing shadows across the room. In the corner stood a silent woman, overlooked and dismissed as mere support staff. To the SEALs, she represented logistics. Someone assigned to handle communications or supply coordination. They assumed her stillness was the frozen response of a civilian mind overwhelmed by combat reality. Some had even begun to sneer at her apparent paralysis, too focused on their own crisis to notice how her gaze kept returning to a specific object in the room. A heavy steel case bolted securely to the floor in the far corner. It was a piece of level black equipment they had been told was classified far beyond their clearance level. Another devastating barrage struck the compound's outer defenses. The concussive waves traveled through the building like an earthquake. The SEALs' voices rose in a cacophony of overlapping orders and barely contained panic. Years of elite training were warring with the primal human response to being trapped and outgunned. "Contact northeast. Multiple targets," one operator shouted. "We need suppressing fire on that rooftop. Where the hell is our backup?" Then, cutting through the chaos like a blade through silk, she moved. Not with frantic energy, but with a deliberate, purposeful calm. Every conversation stopped. Every eye in the room turned to follow her path as she crossed the debris-strewn floor with measured steps. She knelt beside the imposing steel case, which was reinforced with titanium bands and locked with complex security systems. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" a SEAL barked, his voice sharp with authority and disbelief. She offered no response. Instead, her fingers moved across the electronic keypad with practiced precision, entering a sequence from muscle memory. A heavy metallic click echoed through the command post as the locks disengaged. A collective gasp filled the room as the heavy lid lifted. Inside, nestled in custom-cut foam, lay a sniper rifle unlike anything they had ever seen. This was a weapon crafted for operations that officially never happened, carried by operators whose names appeared on no public rosters. "That's completely off-limits," another SEAL shouted, stepping forward. "Nobody touches level black equipment without." His protest died in his throat as a colonel entered through the reinforced rear entrance and stopped dead in the doorway. The senior officer's eyes widened. His weathered face cycled through recognition and awe. His voice, though barely a whisper, carried absolute authority. "Let her." She lifted the rifle from its protective housing. The weapon settled into her hands like an extension of her own anatomy. Her continued silence now carried a terrifying weight, not the paralysis of fear, but the focused calm of a predator finally unleashed. She moved through the shattered doorway with a fluidity that made the battle-hardened SEALs pause. Outside, the battlefield was a tactical hell. Enemy muzzle flashes lit up strategic positions like malevolent stars, and tracer rounds carved bright lines through the night air. The enemy had established overlapping fields of fire, creating deadly kill zones that had pinned the team down for 6 brutal hours. She dropped into a prone position behind a section of blast-damaged wall, a fluid transition that took barely 2 seconds. Her eye found the scope. The world suddenly contracted to a narrow field of magnified view. The first shot came without fanfare. One moment she was acquiring the target. The next, the rifle spoke with a suppressed crack that cut through the battlefield noise. It was followed immediately by the distant impact of a bullet meeting its mark. An enemy sniper, who had been methodically picking off defenders from a concealed position 300 meters away, simply ceased to exist as a threat. The second shot followed within 30 seconds, targeting a heavy machine gun nest anchoring the enemy's left flank. Her bullet found the gunner with clinical precision. The mechanical heartbeat of automatic fire that had dominated the landscape suddenly stopped. The effect was immediate. Enemy fire patterns began to fragment as key positions went silent. Communication broke down as squad leaders and forward observers were systematically eliminated by shots that defied the surrounding chaos. The SEALs witnessed a masterclass in precision warfare. The tide of battle was reversing with mathematical certainty. Fear transformed into amazement, then into professional worship. Whispers began to circulate among the operators. "Who the hell is she? Where did she learn to shoot like that?" The colonel, watching from the doorway like a man witnessing the resurrection of a ghost, finally broke his silence. "That rifle case is level black clearance. She's not here by accident, gentlemen." Memory fragments surfaced in the minds of the experienced operators, whispered stories from classified briefings of a legendary shooter within the Black Operations community who had walked away from recognition. Each additional shot confirmed it. She wasn't support staff. She was the hidden blade waiting in silence to tip the balance between victory and catastrophe. One by one, the remaining enemy positions fell silent. When the last echo of gunfire faded into the desert night, a heavy silence settled over the compound. The enemy force withdrew in total disorder, their planned assault crumbling under the unexpected onslaught. She rose slowly, dust and debris clinging to her uniform. The rifle rested comfortably in her hands, its barrel still warm. Her movements remained controlled, showing no trace of an adrenaline rush. The SEALs, who had spent hours reduced to desperate survivors, now stood with altered posture. Their eyes followed her with an expression bordering on reverence. No words were spoken as she made her way back toward the command post. The silence was the profound quiet of men grappling with the revelation that their assumptions about capability, hierarchy, and their exclusive brotherhood had been fundamentally challenged and found wanting. They had mocked her stillness. Now that same silence radiated absolute authority. She approached the colonel, and the handoff of the rifle was conducted with the quiet respect of one professional acknowledging another. Then, as if the preceding hours had been nothing more than a routine exercise, she walked back to her corner. She took her position among the communications equipment and supply manifests with her usual efficiency. To an outside observer, nothing had occurred. But everything had changed. The SEALs would carry this story with them forever as a lesson in humility. From that day forward, her silence was understood as the quiet confidence of someone who had no need to prove herself through words or posturing. True legends don't speak. They act.